This is Lori Boucher with Painted Heart Market, and thank you for joining us for video 3 of our do-it-yourself Halloween sign project. You can view video 1 and 2 either on YouTube, or you can go to my website, paintedheartmarket.com, to view all the videos, as well as purchase the stencils used in this project. Well, I completed that skim coat over my stencils, and you really can't even see them now because they're on a black board and I painted black over top of them. So it's just kind of the outline's got a little piece of something there. So now it's time to move on to painting orange. This project, to get the end result you saw in that picture, was black paint on the first layer, orange paint on top, so it's the orange over the black, and then some sanding to help expose both the black and the wood. So I'm going to go ahead now and start rolling on my my orange paint, and it's just a nice bright orange. The particular brand I have, they call this pumpkin orange, so I think that's got to be a win-win for Halloween. I am just going to go all the way over. I'm going to show you a little bit of feathering here in a second with a brush for the ends, but I want to get this covered pretty good in orange. I'm not so worried about, getting all the way to the edges because I want to see some of that black through too, and we're going to be doing some sanding. I'm probably, from what it looks like, going to have to do a couple of layers of orange to get it. I want it to be a little bit translucent, the orange, but I do want it to still show up as orange, not just a weird shade of black. So it's going to take a couple of layers. I am just smoothly rolling it on all the way down the line, not looking for any globs or anything. I've got a little piece of dried paint there. Just making it happen, putting it on here. And so I'm going to go ahead and finish this coat, and then I'll come back to the video and we'll see where we go from there. At this point, I've done several coats, probably about 3 good full coats with the roller on my sign, but I want to change it up just a little bit on this project. So I want it to look brushed on. Don't always want that effect, but today I really do. So I'm just taking a little bit of paint on my plate, the same orange, and just kind of a soft bristle brush, trying to bring it into the frame there. And I'm going to go up and down and just paint the orange in. And I had mentioned this to you earlier that I was going to do a little feathering on this project. So in essence, that's what I'm doing here, is just taking this paint and kind of feathering it on. I have enough orange paint on top of my stencils now that I'm really not worried about lifting up that stencil, but I do still need to take care not to scrub or anything. And I'm going to leave it a little heavier in some places, a little lighter in others. I just want it to look a little splotchy. It would look like a bad job of painting if you were painting a piece of furniture or maybe even a wall in your home or something. So I'm going to go, I am going with the grain of the wood. So I'm moving up and down with my brush, nice long strokes. And this is a pretty soft brush. It's a number 12, just a square brush. I use it a lot of times for shading and things. It's kind of just a good all-purposey brush. You could actually use one of those little chip brushes, which are the real little cheap, stiff brushes that you find in the paint store. The ones that may be 3 for $1 or something, so you know they're pretty cheap. I actually use those as a base for a project, but they do work good for doing this kind of painting because they're streaky, and that's what I'm trying to accomplish. Is not a real high coverage, just want it to look very homemade-ish, or that little bit of patina and old on it. And the black still shows through a little bit on what I've got going. So I'm going to move my camera up a little bit so you can see me still painting. Hang on just a second. I'm going to adjust it slightly. Hopefully that's not making you dizzy. Give me just a second. You should see my iPhone. It stays covered in paint because I keep it with me in my workshop all the time. I've always got paint on my hands. So I am just continuing on the whole length. I'm not going side to side. I'm going the length of this sign so that I can get that little splotchiness going on this sign. I'm going to put a little bit of heavier right there on those letters for the word or. It's been a while since we looked at this stencil, but remember, all of my letters are going to show up black on this sign with the exception of the word or. So trick is going to be in black lettering and treat is going to be in black lettering, but or is going to stand out. It's going to end up in a black oval, and the lettering of the word or is going to actually be orange. So that'll get a little more dimension. I'm going to need just to scooch more paint here, and I'll give you a close-up of how this looks because I want you to see it actually looks a little messy, and that was what I was going for. I used the roller until I got it covered pretty good because it would take me all day with a paintbrush trying to get this done. And I did put the fan on it a little bit in between. If I'm doing a project like this and I want to keep it kind of moving along, I'll just, in between layers, I'll set a little portable fan up there and let it blow on it. And it kind of speeds the process up a little bit. I actually live in Georgia, and we seem to be inundated with rain this year. So it seems like every day is a little humid, and that doesn't always do so well with paint. So I'm going to just take the camera and walk along and show you. You can see where I did kind of that rough job on this painting. And it's just to give it that little bit of different texture. I didn't do a full coat. And as you can see, it's kind of wet. So I'm going to need to let that dry. I'm going to go ahead and stop the video for now. Clean up my orange paint mess. When I come back, our board will be dry. And we're going to start doing a little bit of sanding before we peel those letters off. So I'll see you in a few. Well, I've put on that brush coat in the last step that we recorded, and I've allowed it to dry. And you can really tell when the paint's dry because it feels chalky to your hands. If you're feeling sticky, it's still wet. So you want to wait it out. I am going to move on to the next step, which is pretty easy. Before I start sanding, I want to add a little more patina to this piece. And we have done this in some other projects, but I'm just going to use a scruffy old brush like this. And I'm going to use some black paint, and I'm just going to flick it onto the board. It's going to be very random. It just makes the board look a little bit older. And that's kind of what I'm going for. All these little things to me all work together to make it look right. And I'm going to finish putting that little bit of spray on there, and I'll pause the video because I'm going to let it dry for a few minutes. I've added my spackling. You can see some little black specks here on the sign, and those have dried. So my next step is going to be to start sanding. I've got real splotchy looking paint on purpose. You notice that my stencils are still down on the board. I haven't lifted those up yet. You know that I have some brown stain on the wood. I have black paint, and then I have orange paint. So we're going to try to peel back a little of those layers in our sanding. And I'm using a pretty fine grit sandpaper this time, because I want to take this process a little slow. I want to be able to reveal some of the black and leave it where it shows up nicely and get down to the black colors. And then I want to leave some of the black where all I see is the wood. So I'm going to kind of just continue on with this sanding process. you can probably see a little bit of the black going through there. So I'm going to stop the camera, sand a little bit more, and then I'll come back in just a second. I wanted to share a little bit of my sanding progress with you. If you notice, I'm working in this little far corner down here, and I'm trying to reveal some of the black paint. And so I'm just ever so lightly sanding with this low grit sandpaper. And my goal is to remove the orange paint, but kind of leave the black paint behind. If you end up getting all the way down to the wood, that's fine too, because I'd like some of it to look that way also. But you can kind of see the more I rub just a little bit at a time, it's giving me a little shadow of that black coming through, which is the effect that I kind of wanted on this particular piece. I'm going over the edge a little bit now and getting that a little more bald, so we can count on that. I'm really just going to continue this sanding process, and I know it's probably a little irritating to hear this scratchy scratch going on. I'm going to focus a lot of my sanding attention on each end, so down at the bottom and up at the top, and then I'm just going to really keep it kind of narrow here in the sides, really more towards the edge of the piece than anything else. So I will check back in with you a little bit when I get a little more sanding done. Just checking back in with you a little bit to show you my progress here with my sanding. You can see where it's really just making almost like I'm slicing it on an angle with a knife. I'm exposing some of that black paint, I'm exposing some of the full wood, and then some of it I'm leaving the orange on there pretty brightly. And that's the process I'm going to do on both ends. And then as you see, I'm just going to take, and I've been finding as I'm doing this, I'm switching a little bit between the higher grit or more abrasive. So I think this one is my 60 grit. I keep switching back and forth a little bit just to get that look that I'm looking for. But, you know, if you feel like you're not sure, you're going to take too much off, I would stick with just using the lower grit. But I don't really know that there's a way that you can even go wrong with this, because you're just really adding a little flavor, adding a little patina to it. As I kind of rake those dust crumbs off of there, you can see along the side how I'm kind of exposing the wood. But again, it's got that, like it's on some kind of an angle, and it's cutting through a little bit of the paint and a little bit of the black paint, a little bit of the orange paint. And I've got to just really keep going and coach that black paint out around the edges. So I'm going to continue to do that up both sides and then across the top down at the other end. And I'll make this keep happening and pause the video. Well, I have finished all of the painting that I want to do on my side and any antiquing. And now I'm going to go about the business, if I don't drop all my tools, of picking off the stencils. They're still under this orange paint. I've got a little blade here that comes from Silhouette. I've got some tweezers. I use them in sewing, but they work great with vinyl. And then I've got this little pen that's just a favorite of mine. So I'm probably going to use the pen and the tweezers most, but I got this guy out if I need him. And you're just going to see me grab right in the middle. I want to make sure that I'm in the field of view for you. So right here is one of the pieces for the bat filigree. And I'm going to grab it where I know that I'm not going to tear up my paint. I just have to get up under there, and you can see it can take a little bit of coaching. And once I get a corner going, I'm good to go. But we have put several different layers of paint on here. So let me try over here. You know how things are. If you don't want them to stick, they seem to want to stick. So there, I've got a little corner picked up right here. And what I'm going to start to do is pull off this filigree. You see it kind of revealed a little bat that's right there. And this is a process that needs to be done slowly. You don't want to rip up anything that's really gotten itself attached on the edge to some paint. And you can even see right there how beautiful that looks as I'm pulling it back and I'm revealing where that filigree was. It looks really, really pretty. So I'm going to just keep working around and pulling it up. Whatever you can do to get it up. I just suggest, now it looks like right here I've got a little spot of white, and when I run my finger across it, I can tell what it is. It's where the wood was up just a little bit. And so I'll just hit that with a little bit of black paint when I'm all done and make that look the way I want it to. No big deal there. And just working around these little sharp edges. I want them to pull off nice and clean. So this one is going to take a few minutes to get him where I want him to be. And I need to lift up a little more. This is all the black paint that I've exposed right there. So I'm going to pick up another corner, get it going here, and then use my tweezers. So I've got that up. And it's just a very patient process of working through this, lifting it up slowly. You don't want to jerk anything off, and just working a little bit at a time. So I'm going to work a little farther on this filigree and then let you come back and see my... I finished removing all the vinyl on one of the sets of filigree. Actually, I got a little corner sitting right there. I saw some orange and I wondered why it was there. Let me just grab this real quickly. I've got it all cleaned up nicely. You can see how cute the little bats look in this design. Haven't moved to my letters yet, but I'm going to move up the board now and do that. It'll take just a second to get that going. So I'm moving on ahead, and now I'm working on pulling off the stenciling on the letters. It is by far, the removing of stencils, my favorite part of this project. It's like I think I've said before, it reminds me of in those home improvement shows when they do that final reveal. I love how it looks to see this coming up. It's like it's not there and it's just appearing, so it's pretty special. I'm going to use the same process. I'm using my tweezers, I'm using my pen. I'm just working slowly to get these removed without damaging anything on my board. And I'm going to complete this process, and then I'll come back and let you see this letter when it's finished. Here's that letter T all removed. It looks really sharp and clear. I love it. I've got several more to do here. I'm going to just continue working up the board to get these letters all cleaned off. I am going to save this middle piece and come back and show you another video of that. I just want you to see the difference because that stencil was a little bit different. We blocked the black in the oval so that it didn't get covered with the orange, but we filled in the word "or" with orange paint. So it's going to look a little different when we pull it up, and I think it'll be fun to see that. So I'll be back. So here is my finished product, almost finished product. I've got all those letters revealed, and that top filigree is done with the bats. It looks perfect. I love how it turned out. I'm going to work next on removing the centerpiece. So here's my almost finished product. I've got all of the stencils removed. You can see I've got all the letters exposed. The only part I still need to remove is this centerpiece. I'm going to do that in just a second. I really, really love how this is turning out. So I'm going to try to just hold the camera here. I've done all the letters, but I'm going to start the reveal here on the centerpiece, which is actually an oval. And this stencil was different. I don't know if you remember, but basically this stencil had a solid oval that we used to block out the orange paint, and so it'll remain black. And then I left a negative stencil for the word "or," and it was empty, so it was clear in the spaces of the letters. And what that's going to do for us is allow us to have the letters orange. So I'm just going to start peeling this back and see what we've got here. I noticed that my sanding got a little farther over than I anticipated. If I want to, I could go back and paint that more black, but I'll see how it looks in the end. I may just leave it that way. So I'm just going to pull up this little piece here, and you'll start to see that those orange letters. I just want to be careful as I'm pulling across the paint. I don't want to remove it. And here comes the R. And doesn't that really stand out nicely? Very cool. Makes a real sharp look on the sign with those letters being a little bit different color, I think. So I'm going to keep pulling off here, but you kind of get the idea. I've got the black paint that stayed, and then I have the orange that we painted on top. So I'm going to work a little bit more on this and pause the video. So now I'm ready to pull off this stencil in the center, which is the oval and the word or, so trick or treat. And I did this stencil a little bit different. The black is going to show in the oval, and then the letters for or are going to be orange. So I've started lifting it up a little bit here. You can see how it's coming out here. The letter looks, the word looks really, really sharp. And I'm just revealing it here as we go along. And here we go. Just getting in there and starting to pull off these things. And you can see it looks really sharp there. So notice that in addition to having to pull off the oval, I've got a circle here instead of an O. There's actually another piece of stencil right here, and I'm going to get busy in just a second. I'm lifting that up. I'm just going to put my little pen in there and get to working. And there I see that little corner picking up. And I'm going to get my pinchers in here and just lift that off. And that's going to cause that to look like more like an O. So I'll have that finished in just a minute for you. So all of my oval is exposed now. But you notice my O just looks like a big circle. So I've got to get in here. There's actually one more little piece of stencil still under there. I need to get in here and pull out the center of this O. And it's coming up. And you're going to see this look really sharp in here. I keep the camera in the right place for you. All right, there we go. And so now I have a black oval with the orange letters in the center. And there's what the O looks like after I pulled that extra piece of stencil out. This is where we blocked the orange paint from penetrating. We blocked it in the whole oval and the center of the O. And then this was left open in our stencil. So when we painted orange, it turned the word or into orange for us. So here's kind of a final look on the table of this. I love how that contrast is. I've got the bats at the bottom. I come up to the center. I've got that contrast of orange. And then I've got trick up at the top and some more bats up there. I've got my lovely little antiquing here on the edges that really makes it look weathered and worn. And really the only thing for me to do now is to spray this with some clear acrylic paint or spray paint cans. I actually will do that before I take it outside. I am going to use a matte spray. I think it gives a better look on a sign like this. I've been trying to make it look weathered, and so I don't want to put a high gloss on it. That'll kind of combat that. But I also don't want to put it out there without any protection. I want it to look weathered, but I don't want it to actually weather. So putting some clear spray over this is going to keep all of my work intact. So I will finish spraying this, get it out on my front porch, let you see what this beauty looks like up by the door. And all I'll need to do then is hunt some trick-or-treaters. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you on the front porch in just a little bit. Thank you for joining us today at Painted Heart Market for our do-it-yourself Halloween sign. You can view the first and second videos to this series on YouTube, or you can go to our website, paintedheartmarket.com, to see all the videos
and also to purchase the stencils used in this project. Thanks for joining.